Are my parents okay with this? Absolutely not. They texted me this morning and they asked for me to tell you all that they do not support me and that they have chosen their convictions and their beliefs over supporting their child.
Rarely do I did not get into ministry to talk about myself or my personal life, but sometimes there are things that happen in a pastor's personal life that is going to find its way out into ministry. And so I am inviting you to join me in a season of creative transformation for myself, and I think for all of us. Imagine, so I get to announce with joy that I'm transitioning. I'm affirming and saying to all of you that I am transgender. And so the best way to put this is that I'm not becoming a woman, I'm giving up pretending to be a man. What will change? Thank God you have never chosen me as your pastor based off of my appearance. Amen. I was waiting for that. None of you ever judged me, or that was not part of the intake process of me being your pastor, was because of how my face looked, or my body, or how long my hair is, or my clothes. Because at the end of the day, we know that clothes are just fibers. They do not carry an anatomy with them. So to say that something is girls' clothes or boys' clothes, well, they don't come with a reproductive system. Amen?
I find that quite interesting that he says that, his pastor says that while those things don't define, but he still chooses those things that don't define to define how he defines himself. You know, let me explain. Advertising a car, they will make it about, you know, how the car feels and it's a part of you, you know, you can feel the car, they make it as if it's a part of you, right? When they advertise this thing. So now it's quite an interesting one that he says these are not the reasons why they chose him as a pastor, but he still allows those things that didn't define him to define him. If I allow the car I drive to define me, okay, this is why people say, oh no, this person is living a fake life. What are they saying? They are saying that the things that shouldn't define you have come to a place where they are now defining you. People start fighting because someone said the other person was stupid. Yeah, I'm not stupid. And so now that becomes the cause of the fight. The fight goes on because the other person was stupid, and the other person is not stupid, doesn't feel stupid, does not identify themselves as stupid, and so the fight is on that.
Thank God you have never chosen me as your pastor based off of my appearance.
But why did the appearance matter? Because transitioning is going through the change. Why does that change matter if it doesn't define you?
Amen. I was waiting for that.
He was waiting for someone to agree. And this is all this is. That's why personally I do not want the mandems from the flag next to me. Why? Because that's all it becomes. Affirming them in what they define as. And it creates a problem when we must speak truth. Because now I must either prioritize you in what you want to identify at, which you just said it shouldn't define. But now, similarly, it seems to define. This creates a lot of problems. Continues.
None of you ever judged me, or that was not part of the intake process of me being your pastor was because of how my face looked, or my body, or how long my hair is, or my clothes. Because at the end of the day, we know that clothes are just fibers. They do not carry an anatomy with them. So to say that something is girls' clothes or boys' clothes, well, they don't come with a reproductive system.
But they define what they cover. Clothes define what they cover.
So it will change my voice. It might go a tad higher.
So you'll change his voice. It might change to why change the voice? You just say that these things don't define us. So why change the voice?
Pronouns she, her, but I'm not going to be pronoun police. Okay? Because I don't think that anybody will misgender or mispronoun out of malice. This is a process, it's a transition.
Notice that it also needs to change the people. Now, in the video, he mentions that his parents were not having it. They were not going to participate in all these things, and they were not going to do any of that because they are not into all of those mandem type of things. They don't want it. You notice that it requires a change not only of the individual, even if they say, no, it's not change. And it requires also the other people around them to change. That's why personally I don't want them next to me. I don't have friends, nothing, because I will have to change to accommodate them. Unless we can, you see now, I must be calling him she now. Do you know how unnatural that is? Because now I have to change. I see what these clothes fit here are defining and how I see you. I see beards there, and I must still call, no. So that's my biggest issue, is that it doesn't just change them, it changes both them and you. Be careful of these agendas. That's me. They say no. I care how I'm addressed. Like, remember what Somizi was saying. You teach other people how they must treat you. No problem. I don't want you next to me. Then you can go teach other people. It's fine. I am not interested in all that entire thing of how I'm no. I'm fine with that. How I must call you? No, I'm not gonna call you as anything if you are not next to me. Let's just not be next to each other. Period. That's why I choose that. I choose that because it gives me peace, knowing that I don't have to. I'm not going to misgender you. What? No, because you are not next to me at all. There's no conversation, nothing. You want to be isolated, be isolated. I see beard, I see a man. Now, if I see beard and then I must see clothes and then see other items that contradict things, and then I must call you some, no, I would rather, there's too much things that are confusing me, confusing my eyes. Let's not talk about it. That's what I choose. But y'all tell me, maybe y'all guys have other solutions. For me, that works. I'm not going to entertain things I don't. My mind says the other thing. Now I'm being told to say the other things. It just creates confusion. Hi, man. It creates confusion, and I'm not interested in the confusion.